Most people won't do this work, let's be real, because it's easier to stay in denial, to stay distracted, or to keep busy with surface level activities. But thankfully, you're not like most people. You're here listening to a podcast called The Kindness Extremist, which means you're already committed to doing things differently. Welcome to the Kindness Extremist podcast. I'm your host, Shola Richards, aka Brother Teresa. I've spoken to tens of thousands of people all over the world about the importance of kindness. And I am obsessed with how we can bring more kindness into our daily lives and restore balance to a deeply unbalanced world. Every episode, I'll give you 3 practical strategies to create a kinder world, and I'll do it in 30 minutes or less. No fluff, just valuable, actionable content that you can implement in your life immediately after listening to help you actively create a kinder world. There's no time to waste. Let's dive in. Welcome back, my friend, to episode 27 of the Kindness Extremist podcast. I am your host, Shola Richards, aka Brother Teresa, and I am genuinely grateful that you've chosen to spend time with me today. You might not know this about me, but I am absolutely fascinated by people who do things differently. You know the type, right? The ones who take the scenic route when everyone else is rushing down the freeway, the ones who deleted all their social media accounts without apology, the ones who see solutions where others only see problems, or my all-time favorite, the ones who choose the harder path because they know it's going to lead somewhere meaningful. Today, I'm talking about 3 uncommon approaches to making the world a kinder place. And when I say uncommon, I mean these are strategies that most people actively avoid because they require something that's become increasingly rare in our world: courage. Here's the thing, fam. We've heard all the typical kindness advice before, right? Hold doors open, say please and thank you, smile more. And look, there's nothing wrong with any of that. But if we're serious about creating real change, if we want to be true kindness extremists, we need to be willing to go deeper than that. We need to be willing to do the uncomfortable work that others won't do. The 3 strategies that I'm covering today might make you squirm a little bit. They might challenge some assumptions that you've held about what kindness looks like in practice. But I promise you this, my friend, if you're brave enough to implement them, you'll discover that the most powerful acts of kindness often happen in the spaces where people are too afraid to go. I'm so excited about these 3 strategies, so let's dispense with the pregame stuff and let's dive into the meat of this episode. You ready? I know I am. Let's do this. Let's dive into the first uncommon approach to kindness: seeking out purposeful discomfort. I know what you might be thinking. Shola, are you seriously suggesting that being uncomfortable is a form of kindness? Have you lost your mind? Okay, stay with me here, because this might be the most important section of this entire episode. Most people spend their entire lives avoiding discomfort. We avoid difficult conversations. We avoid admitting when we're wrong. We avoid sitting in silence with our own thoughts. We avoid taking responsibility for our mistakes. We avoid going to therapy to unpack our trauma. We avoid doing things that might make us look foolish or vulnerable. Why? Because we can't handle discomfort. That's why. Here's what I've learned after years of studying human behavior and experiencing my own share of uncomfortable growth. Every single meaningful change in your life will require you to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. You know this is true. Learning to walk as a child was uncomfortable. All that falling down and getting back up. Learning how to drive was uncomfortable. All that coordination and potential to severely injure another motorist or yourself. Starting a new job is uncomfortable. Having your first child is uncomfortable. Hell, even getting married is uncomfortable if we're going to be honest about it. The problem is that we've been conditioned to believe that discomfort equals danger, when in reality, discomfort often equals growth. Here's where the kindness piece comes into play. When you avoid the discomfort of necessary conversations, necessary growth, and necessary change, you're not just limiting yourself, you're limiting your ability to show up fully for the people who matter to you. Let me give you a real example. I once knew a manager, let's call her Brittany, who had a team member who was consistently missing deadlines and creating extra work for everyone else on her team. Brittany knew she needed to address the situation, but she kept putting it off because she was uncomfortable with confrontation. What Brittany didn't realize was that her avoidance of this uncomfortable conversation was actually creating suffering for her entire team. They were working overtime to cover and compensate for this person. They were feeling resentful, understandably. Team morale was plummeting. And worst of all, the underperforming team member wasn't getting the feedback that they needed to improve. When Brittany finally found the courage to have that difficult conversation, when she deliberately sought out that discomfort, everything changed. The team member was completely unaware of their blind spot, and after becoming more aware, thanks to Brittany's intervention, made the necessary improvements. Now, here's the best part of this. The entire team's stress level decreased significantly. Brittany's willingness to be uncomfortable was an act of kindness to everyone involved. But here's the deeper truth. Seeking out purposeful discomfort isn't just about having difficult conversations with others, but having difficult conversations with yourself. It's about asking yourself questions like, what am I avoiding that I need to address? Or, where am I settling for mediocrity because excellence feels too scary? Or, what beliefs am I holding on to that might be limiting my growth or my relationships? Most people won't do this work, let's be real, because it's easier to stay in denial, to stay distracted, or to keep busy with surface level activities. But thankfully, you're not like most people. You're here listening to a podcast called The Kindness Extremist, which means you're already committed to doing things differently. Here's what purposeful discomfort looks like in practice. It's choosing to have the conversation with your family member about their drinking problem, even though you know it might create temporary tension. It's admitting to your team that you don't have all the answers, even though you're supposed to be the leader. It's overcoming your self-consciousness to begin a consistent gym routine, even if you haven't been inside of a gym in years. It's sitting in meditation for 10 minutes without checking your phone, even though your mind is racing with all of the things that you should be doing. It's asking for feedback about your performance, both at work and at home, even though you might hear things that sting. It's saying, I don't know, when you actually don't know, instead of pretending to have knowledge that you don't possess. It's apologizing when you've messed up, even when your ego is screaming at you to defend yourself. You get the point. All of these actions require you to step into discomfort deliberately, and every single one of them is an act of profound kindness to yourself and to others. So your first kind of strategy of the episode is this. Identify one area of your life where you've been avoiding necessary discomfort. This might be a conversation that you need to have, a skill you need to develop, a habit you need to change, or a truth you need to face. This week, commit to one small step toward that discomfort. If it's a conversation, schedule it. If it's a skill, sign up for a class. If it's a habit, start with 5 minutes a day. The goal isn't to eliminate all discomfort, it's to get more comfortable with the process of growth. Remember, the most loving thing that you can do for yourself and for others is to become the person that you're capable of being. And that person is always on the other side of the discomfort that you're currently avoiding. For the second uncommon approach to kindness, and this one is my personal favorite, I call it Kossip. It's spelled Kossip. And if you're wondering what in the world Kossip means, you're not alone. It's a word that I made up by combining kind and gossip. And before you roll your eyes at me for creating random words, hear me out, because this concept has the power to transform every workplace, every community, and every relationship that you're a part of. We all know how traditional gossip works. People gather around the metaphorical water cooler and start talking sugar honey iced tea about someone who wasn't there. Sugar honey iced tea is an acronym, by the way. You get it? I thought that was hilarious. Anyway, usually these conversations involve complaints, criticisms, judgments, or spreading information that probably shouldn't be shared. Traditional gossip destroys trust, creates division, and makes workplaces and communities more toxic. Kossip is the exact opposite of that. It's like gossip, but in reverse. Kossip is the intentional practice of saying genuinely kind things about people when they're not in the room. It's about highlighting someone's strengths, acknowledging their contributions, and sharing positive observations about their character or their work. But here's the key. Just like traditional gossip, these positive words have a way of making it back to the person. And when they do, something magical happens. In order to do this, you have to be a master at catching people doing the right thing. So let me paint a picture of what Kossip looks like in action. You can say to a colleague, Rachel is always so thoughtful in her email responses. You can really tell that she takes her time to consider what she's saying before she hits send. I really appreciate that about her. Or when you're out with your mutual friends and Derek isn't present, you could say, Derek constantly brings positive energy wherever he goes. Even when he's dealing with intense stress in his personal and professional life, he always has this powerful ability to keep everyone around him motivated and optimistic. It's impossible not to feel good when you're around him. Or in a team meeting, you can say this about a person in a different department. Samantha has a masterful ability to take complex ideas and present them in a clear and concise manner. She's brilliant, and I have so much to learn from her approach to problem solving. Here's the thing though, Kossip only works if you're genuine. You can't manufacture positive feelings about someone just for the sake of participating in Kossip. But as I mentioned earlier, when you start looking for the good in people, you start finding it. Most of us have been trained to notice what's wrong, what's missing, what's annoying about others. But mostly everyone has positive qualities if you're willing to look for them. The person who's too detail-oriented might actually be an incredibly thorough and reliable person. The person who's too quiet might also be an excellent listener who makes thoughtful contributions when they do speak. The person who ask too many questions might also be genuinely curious and committed to understanding things fully. Kossip requires you to shift your perspective from deficit-based thinking to strengths-based thinking. And this shift doesn't just benefit the people you're talking about, it benefits you too. When you train your brain to look for the positive in others, you become a more positive person overall. You start enjoying your relationships more. You become someone that others want to be around. You create psychological safety for others, which brings out the best in them. But the real magic of Kossip happens when those positive words make it back to the person you're talking about. Imagine finding out that a colleague described you as brilliant to someone else. Imagine hearing that your friends think that you constantly bring positive energy wherever you go. Imagine learning that someone on another team told your boss that you have a masterful ability to handle complex situations. How would that make you feel? How would that affect your confidence, your motivation, and your sense of belonging? This is the power of Kossip. When we know that others are speaking about us kindly when we're not in the room, it increases our sense of belonging, fuels our discretionary effort, and most importantly, quiets the inner voice that tries to tell us that we're not good enough. And here's the beautiful ripple effect. When people feel good about themselves, they're more likely to look for the good in others. Kossip creates a positive feedback loop that can transform entire cultures, both personally and professionally. I've seen this work in organizations where I've spoken. Teams that implement Kossip report higher morale, better collaboration, increased trust, improved overall performance. And why? Because people do their best work when they feel valued, appreciated, and supported. But Kossip isn't just for the workplace. It works in families, friend groups, communities, and in any setting where humans interact. The second kindness strategy of the episode is this: commit to practicing Kossip for the next week. Each day, find one genuine thing, just one positive, genuine thing to say about someone when they're not in the room. This might be a colleague, a family member, a neighbor, or anyone else in your life. Focus on specific behaviors, contributions, or character traits that you genuinely appreciate. And remember, the goal is authenticity, not checking a box. You don't have to find something positive about everyone, but challenge yourself to look for the good in people more intentionally. Keep track of how this practice affects your own mood, your relationships, and the overall energy of the spaces you occupy. I suspect you'll be surprised by the positive changes that you notice. Hey, fellow kindness extremists, it's me, Shola. If you're picking up what I'm putting down, if you're mowing what I'm growing, if you're smelling what I'm stepping in. Okay, I'll stop. If you're enjoying what you're listening to so far, I would love it if you would take a moment to hit the subscribe button and leave a rating and a review. Those incredibly kind acts go so far in helping me to reach as many people as possible who will join the movement to actively create a kinder world. I appreciate you so much, my friend. Okay, let's get back to the episode. Now let's dive into the third and arguably most uncommon approach to kindness: giving a damn about issues that don't affect you personally. This one might be the most challenging of the three because it requires you to expand your circle of concern well beyond your immediate self-interest. It asks you to care about people you may never meet, situations you may never experience, and problems that may never directly impact your life. Now, in our increasingly polarized world, this kind of expansive empathy has become not just uncommon, it's almost revolutionary. Sadly, most people operate from a place of self-interest most of the time. They only care about issues that affect them, their families, their communities, and their identities, or their financial situations. And while this is completely natural and understandable, it's also incredibly limiting. When we only care about issues that directly affect us, we create a world where problems persist because the people with the power to solve them don't experience the pain of those problems personally. Okay, this is so important, I'm going to say it again. We've created a world where problems persist because the people with the power to solve them don't experience the pain of those problems personally. Let me give you some examples of what I'm talking about here. If you've never struggled with mental health issues before in your life, it's easy to dismiss the importance of mental health resources and support. If you've never experienced discrimination based on your race, gender, sexual orientation, or religion, it is so easy to downplay the significance of systemic inequality. If you've never worried about where your next meal is coming from, it's easy to have opinions about poverty that aren't grounded in reality. If you've never lived with a disability, it's easy to overlook the barriers that make everyday activities challenging for others. If you've never been an immigrant, it's easy to form opinions about immigration policy without understanding the human stories behind the statistics. The problem with this self-centered approach to caring is that it creates a world where suffering persists because the people who could help don't see it as their problem or as their responsibility. But here is where the kindness extremist mindset comes in. We choose to care anyway. We choose to give a damn anyway. We choose to educate ourselves about issues that don't directly affect us. We choose to listen to people whose experiences are different from ours. We choose to use our privilege, our resources, and our influence to advocate for others. This isn't about guilt or performative activism. This is about recognizing that our individual well-being is connected to the collective well-being of our communities and of our world. When some people suffer, we all suffer. When some people thrive, we all benefit. Let me share a personal example. As a Black man in America, unfortunately, I have direct experience with racial discrimination. But I also choose to care deeply about LGBTQ+ rights, women's rights, disability rights, immigration issues, and many other issues that don't affect my daily experience. Why? Because I've learned that kindness isn't about creating a world that works just for me and for people who look like me, but creating a world that works for everyone. And here's what I've discovered. When you start caring about issues beyond your immediate experience, you become more informed, more empathetic, and more effective as a human being. You start asking better questions. You start making more thoughtful decisions. You start building more meaningful relationships with people whose backgrounds and experiences are different from yours. More importantly, you start contributing to solutions instead of just complaining about the problems. So, what does this look like in practice? It might mean educating yourself about an issue that you don't personally experience by reading books, articles, or research from credible sources. It might mean listening to podcasts or attending events where you can hear directly from people who are affected by these issues. It might mean donating your money, your time, or skills to organizations that are working on problems that you care about. It might mean using your social media platform, your workplace influence, or your social connections to amplify voices and causes that need more attention. It might mean having conversations with friends and family members about issues they might not have considered before. It might mean voting for policies and for candidates who support solutions to problems that don't directly affect you. It might mean speaking up when you witness discrimination, injustice, or harm, even when it'd be so much easier to stay silent. But here's what it definitely doesn't mean. It doesn't mean that you have to become an expert on every social issue, and it doesn't mean you have to sacrifice your own well-being for others. And it doesn't mean that you have to feel guilty about your privileges or your advantages. What it does mean is choosing to expand your definition of us to include more people. It means recognizing that true kindness isn't just about being nice to the people in your immediate circle. It's about working to create systems and cultures where everyone has the opportunity to thrive. I want to address something important here. Some people resist this approach because they feel overwhelmed by the magnitude of problems in the world. They think, there's so much suffering, there's so much injustice, so many issues need my attention. How can I possibly make a difference? The answer is so simple. You don't have to solve everything, but you can do something. Pick one issue, just one that resonates with you. Learn about it deeply and find one way to contribute meaningfully. Focus your energy there instead of trying to tackle every problem at once. Maybe it's education inequality in your local school district. Maybe it's hunger in your community. Maybe it's environmental protection. Maybe it's supporting veterans. Maybe it's advocating for elderly people in nursing homes. The specific issue matters less than your willingness to care beyond yourself. So your third kind of strategy of the episode is this. Choose one issue that doesn't directly affect you personally, but you feel called to learn more about. This week, commit to spending at least 30 minutes educating yourself about this issue from credible sources. Then, identify one small action that you can take to contribute to a solution. This might be making a small donation, volunteering for an hour, sharing information with your network, or having one conversation with someone who might not be aware of the issue. The goal isn't to become an activist overnight. The goal is to expand your circle of concern and take one meaningful step toward creating a world that works better for everyone. Remember, and I really want you to think about this, every significant social change in history started with individuals who chose to give a damn about issues that didn't affect them directly. The kindness extremists who came before us understood that true kindness requires us to see beyond ourselves and act on behalf of others. We've covered a lot of ground today, and I want to recap the 3 uncommon approaches to kindness that we explored. First, seek out purposeful discomfort. Remember that every meaningful change in your life will require you to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Whether it's having difficult conversations, admitting when you're wrong, or facing truths that you've been avoiding, your willingness to embrace discomfort is one of the kindest things that you can do for yourself and for others. Second, practice Kossip, my made-up word. Let's get this trending. Hashtag Kossip. Transform your relationships in your communities by intentionally saying kind things about people when they're not in the room. Look for the good in others, share it authentically, and watch as the positive words make their way back to create belonging, motivation, and joy in others. And third, give a damn about issues that don't affect you personally. Expand your circle of concern beyond your immediate self-interest. Choose to care about, learn about, and ideally contribute to solutions for problems that others face, even when you don't personally experience those challenges. These strategies aren't easy, fam. They require courage, intentionality, and a willingness to do things differently than most people around you do. But that's exactly what makes them so powerful. In a world where most people take the path of least resistance, you're choosing to take the path of most impact. In a world where most people avoid discomfort, you're seeking it out purposefully. In a world where most people focus on problems, you're creating solutions through positive communication. In a world where most people only care about themselves, you're expanding your circle of concern to include others. That's not just uncommon. As mentioned earlier, that's revolutionary. I want to challenge you to implement all three strategies this week. Identify one area where you've been avoiding necessary discomfort and take one small step toward it. Practice Kossip by saying something genuinely positive about someone when they're not around, and choose one issue that doesn't directly affect you and learn more about it and contribute to solving that issue. These practices will stretch you. They might make you uncomfortable. They will definitely require more effort than just scrolling through social media or binge watching Netflix. But they will also make you the kind of person who creates positive change wherever you go. They'll make you the kind of person that others want to be around. Most importantly, they'll make you the kind of person who is actively building a kinder world that we all desperately need. The world has enough people who are willing to do the minimum. What it needs more are the kindest extremists who are willing to do the uncomfortable, uncommon work of real, meaningful change. This is your host, Shola Richards, aka Brother Teresa, and you now know that kindness can't be weak because you just experienced the strength of the Kindness Extremist podcast. Until next time, my friend, the journey to a kinder world continues. Thank you for listening to the Kindness Extremist podcast. I really hope that you enjoyed this episode, and I have one favor to ask. If you could kindly hit the subscribe button, leave a rating and a review, not only would that be incredibly kind, but by doing so, you're actively playing a role in growing this movement and ideally getting us one step closer to creating a kinder world. I hope to see you next week for another episode of the Kindness Extremist podcast. Bye for now.